Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Now, historic films made in the spring of 1948 and just released show Eniwetok preparing for heavily guarded and still largely secret tests of new atomic weapons. The test's purpose is to measure atomic effects on thousands of different materials, 30,000 tons of them, not, as at Bikini, to prove military effectiveness.
San Francisco police say that 9 persons have been arrested in a narcotics raid on the headquarters of the Grateful Dead, a widely popular singing group. 2 members of the group, Rod McKernan and Robert Weir, and their business manager, Danny Rifkin, have been booked on suspicion of possessing narcotics.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
Here we got a roll program. Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading.
I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Well, strange lights are causing a viral buzz on YouTube. Could we have caught extraterrestrial activity on a recent newscast? Brandon Arroyo investigates.
As the newscast ended, the controversy began back on September 26th. What is that light shining in the back of the dark night sky?
With coverage reaching all the way back to 1948, for over 70 years, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Now, Fate Magazine Radio is carrying on that tradition of setting the standard in paranormal talk radio as we report and discuss some of the most mysterious and perplexing phenomena imaginable in this strange world of ours. Now, here is your host of Fate Magazine Radio, Kat Hobson.
Good evening. Welcome to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I am Kat Hobson, your host, and I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Today was originally a scheduled travel day, and I am so glad to be here. I am really excited to bring my friend, co-host here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, one of the most interesting people I know. He is a raconteur like no other. He is an author. He is a tour creator, and he's building one that he's going to be doing in Pensacola. And I'm going to tell you, Pensacola is rocking the haunted. I'm just saying. So you need to check that out. He is just really special. He's the host of Universal Truths. There's just really not enough time to go into everything, so I'm going to let y'all experience this for yourselves. This is my guest, Mark Fults. Mark, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Kat, for having me.
Well, you know, we can talk for days, and yeah. I love that. And I like being able to share you with my listeners because if they're not already listening to your show, they need to know you're there because you do such a great job. You bring a wide variety of information. You are working on another book, and you are always in the creating and building and planning mode. You just don't seem to shut down very often. Would that be accurate?
That would be fairly accurate. Because, right now, I'm doing the third in a series of my Chattanooga Chills books, and this one is Tales from the Grave. I just agreed with my editor, the one that does my editing, Sin Schroeder Hill. I'm doing a book called Headless Ghosts, Wandering Phantoms, and Buried Alive and Other Tales of Mysteries. And I'm working on my mean old grandma's good old cookbook.
I can't wait on
with
that.
Teal Gray. I can't either because I think it's so much fun. And I'm doing a string of artwork for products and for things I'm doing, and so I'm just having a great time. And I'm at this age I feel like I've had a little renaissance. I'm just having. I'm like a lot of Americans, I don't have very much right now, or anything, but I'm just making the most of what I got. And as long as my brain can think, I can create something. So, and I try. So, whether it's a mess, the store I work in, they carry a lot of very unusual things, and they love for me to fix these, what they call chicken feet. For people buy them for good luck, and it's like, it took me months to even think, ew. And now that I've done them, you paint them and put feathers and things on them, and people just go crazy over them. And I'm like, really, But I'm doing chicken feet. I'm doing all sorts of weird things, making products. So it's a lot of fun.
Well,
it's a lot of fun.
You don't back away from new experiences, from what I can tell. Now, I've only known you about a year, so and we were introduced through the wonderful Teal Gray. But I think that chicken feet, that's a little beyond my kin, as it were. But is that a voodoo thing? Is that just a wacky doodle thing that people like to have? What are the chicken feet used for?
Well, the store I work for is a metaphysical store.
Right.
And there's a lot of people who like chicken feet because it's kind of like of course, we're not far from Louisiana.
Right.
And there are a lot of people who are, voodoo-y, and they like the chicken feet because the chicken feet represent scratching out of the earth, scratching and digging out things and rooting out things. So the chicken feet are like a thing to protect you and get find the truth or to protect you, as far as I understand. And a friend of mine used to make them, and she'd sell them in the store. She doesn't do it anymore. So they just looked at me and said, because I make stuff, and they went, do these chicken feet. And I thought, ew. And
I would have said ew, too.
But once you deal with it, they buy. They're like kind of like a dog, and people eat them.
Yes, they do.
Oddly enough, and dogs and things that have them as treats. And so, I eat chicken all the time. I just don't eat the feet. And so, that's one of those things. And really, to me, they look like little velociraptors, actually they have scales on them, and they have tinkered with chicken eggs and genetically and turned them into little velociraptors. And so they turn more into a lizard than they do a feathered bird at some point. But so I started doing them, and of course, I like things to be fancy looking, so I bind them with this gold soutache, and I have all these feathers sticking out of them, and I put a loop on it. I make them look primitive and elegant, and paint them bright colors and things like that. And people grab them. And it's not something I would do, but it's something that, they went, well, we need this because the people buy them. Especially, like I said, we're not that far from Louisiana. I'm from New Orleans. So there's a lot of people here who want that and kind of stuff. And it's like country kind of magic-y, the kind of things, and omens and rituals. And so, but they literally fly out the door.
Is it?
And because I just, and I'm like, okie dokie, whatever.
I don't think that would be my color Kool-Aid. Now, in all fairness, I am friends with Bloody Mary, Voodoo Queen of New Orleans. She is a good friend, and it's I get a little surprised every time she and I wander together or get together, and I learn more from her. I'm always surprised by what I might find in her shop or in her home, or things are just not always what they seem. But that's why when you said chicken feet, I was like, is that a voodoo thing? Because it seemed like that sounded familiar. But
the shop I work in, we carry all beliefs,
right?
And from Christian to not, kind of thing. And voodoo is so popular, and especially young people, and it's it has a very positive side to it. I know people when they see it, they think it's very spooky and all this, but it has a very positive side to it and very positive practitioners. And then you have a few who are very mysterious and very interesting. But it for the most part, I mean, it's it's kind of like country magic, people, and they've evolved it into, the women would do the healing and make the medicines and things, because back in the old days you didn't have medicine stores, CVS and Walgreens, and the doctors were actually dangerous because they would bleed you to death. They thought that was a good way to heal things. And there were other practices that went, no, let's use tinctures and herbs and healing. And there's a lot of that in it. And then there's a lot of, magic. And then there's a lot of, and it's evolved with Christianity. So there's a lot of Christian elements and Catholicism and things in it. So, but there are a lot of people who are just fascinated with the very primitive things, and things like the chicken feet are, and they even have these big turkey feet. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that? And so I took one and I put all these feathers on it, and people came in and grabbed them. And I'm like, I don't know, they look like eagle feet, they're huge. And people grab them. And so whatever I do with them, I'm weird, so I do weird and strange things. So it works. But it's not things, I need or buy, but it's things that I'm making for them to buy and sell. And so it's fun. It's different. But they go flying up the door. Yeah, it's very creative. But I had to get over my kind of factor, and then figured out how I was going to do it. And then once I did, I got into it. But it takes a lot of feathers, let me tell you. So, but but when they get low on them, they start panicking, and it's very funny. So it's one of those things I've just fell into, but it's just something, in the store, they'll look at something they need and they'll say, Mark could do that, I'll paint pictures, and I make labels and they stick them on candles, for good luck. Or I even have one that's for, keep the hurricane away, and kind of things. And people come and buy them and use them, to keep the hurricane away. So
I can't say anything about that. I have a vase that someone made me who actually survived Ivan. She lived in Pensacola. Well, actually, she lived between Pensacola and Orange Beach. Well, between Pensacola and Perdido. And her home, she stayed because they couldn't move her mother, right? And so their home collapsed, obviously, in that storm because it was in Grand Canal. But they were trapped. You know, her mother ultimately passed, but they were trapped in the rubbish, in the water, with the tides flowing back and forth. And they didn't realize it, but there was a horrible odor. The odor, and you probably know this, but not everybody does, water moccasins stink.
Yeah.
And they were surrounded and crawling with water moccasins, and none of them were bitten. But when the Coast Guard and Marine Rescue got to them, they were unable to access them immediately because they had to decide what to do with the snakes, right?
Yeah.
So, and I still don't know what they did to clear them, but they did get my friend out. And she started making these beautiful vases and urns, and they had angels made from seashells that she found, you know, after the storm. And we were both vending at a popular restaurant in Gulf Shores, and she gave me one. She said, "Look, I call these my hurricane angels. So put this vase in your home, and it will protect you from a hurricane. It's blessed. I promise, you know, I've done everything I can to make this so. Besides, it's cute. You'll love it." And so when I am not renting, it is there. And if there is a storm coming, it is there. Because I, too, believe in the power of belief, and talismans carry that.
Sure.
So I take that down there, and I keep it here when it's not, because I figure it works with tornadoes, too, and I live in a tornado-prone area.
Yeah.
Right? So, but, you know, there is such validation in so many ways with that, because I think that the power, and correct me, because I'm interested, you are so well trained, but I believe that the power of belief carries a lot of weight. If you imbibe it with faith, then you get results. Is that true?
Oh, yeah. I believe it thoroughly. I believe in, I mean, when you do prayers and stuff like that, that's energy, and you're creating an energy sphere to send from you to where it's going. And it goes, you know, it's, and if you have a relationship with where you're sending to, say, like if you're talking to God, or, you know, the energy that is God, you know, you're sending basically a balloon of energy to them when you're praying. And the more relationship you have from it, the more energy you put into it, then when you need it, you pull from it. And so I believe, you know, the more relationship you have, prayer works, you know, and then the more that you do when you need it, that's why you can pull from it sometimes, and it'll cause really unusual effects. So I do believe it.
You know, that is interesting. It's just like, you know, you wouldn't go up to someone that you don't know well and ask for a huge favor. But if it's somebody that you've had a relationship with for years and communicate with and have developed a rapport, then you're more comfortable doing that. And you're also more likely to get a positive answer. That's logical.
You'll get a response. Yeah. You know, I mean, whether it's God, whether it's Buddha, whether it's, you know, goddess, whether, you know, whoever you're focusing on, that, I mean, that energy exists. It's out there. So there's an energy that says God or goddess or, you know, Buddha. And every time you send energy to it, you know, you're creating a tether to that. And so when you need it, then that energy is comes right back to you. So it's important to pray.
Well, that is very cool. But we are at a break. Y'all, we will be right back with Mark Fults. I hope y'all come back too, because there's just more coming. We'll see you on the flip side.
Warning, the following message does not necessarily reflect the views of WBHM-DB or its hosts, guests, listeners, or of any functioning adult in general. In fact, Frank should probably seek professional help. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi there, Frank Lee here. I thought that I would spend a few moments telling you about the positivity from the network here. The overall message of para-unity and happiness, and how everyone here wants to get along with everyone out there, and how everything is just wonderful. Wait, Cat's not looking. Okay, I've got something to really tell you. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what's really going on. Honestly, all that being nice and positive crap was kind of hurting my soul, as dark as it is. So, what's really happening? Well, you see it all the time. Everybody and their brother out there has a paranormal team because they watch a couple of episodes of Ghost Hunters or some crap like that. So they go and they spend half their mortgage payment on tools and things that light up that they don't understand. And then the next logical step after buying matching black t-shirts and posing like 90s rappers for their Facebook page is to, of course, have their own podcast. Well, you know what? You're not going to find that crap here. What we have here at WBHM Digital Broadcasting is the best host, the best guest, bringing you real information. All of the hosts here on this network know their stuff. They are the people who have been out there doing the work, doing actual research. And no, by research, I don't mean binge watching some kind of cheesy TV show on Netflix. I mean reading books. I mean out in the field doing the legwork. And who are they interviewing on their shows? They're bringing you the people they have learned from. They're bringing you the best in the field, covering all kinds of topics from UFOs and aliens to Bigfoot to cryptozoology to ghosts to anything you can think of a bit strange and unexplained. It is here, and you're going to get the best information here. So stay tuned to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Don't go anywhere. Speaking of going somewhere, I've got to go before my mic gets cut. We'll see you there on WBHM-DB.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. I'm Kat Hobson, your host, and I am so pleased that you are here because my guest is Mark Fults, and we have been discussing all kinds of stuff so far, and it's never boring. And we've discussed everything from chicken feet to prayer and energy responses to relationships with those that you seek help from. And Mark, I'm sorry that I kind of cut you off there as we were going to the break, but I have to tell you that I found the chicken feet part interesting because Lori in chat said, I'm sorry, I wouldn't want chicken feet. But perhaps if you lost something that was valuable enough, you would want to be able to scratch out a clue to find it. So,
and they're kind of protective for some people. I don't know a whole lot about what people really use them for. And to tell you this, I don't have one in my house. Like I said, it's kind of, now that I've gotten used to handling them, I can make them and put them in a store, but I'm not going to have them hanging in my house. But it's for the people who want it, and that, like I said, I watch those suckers fly out the door, literally,
as it were,
and as it were, and I make them sparkly sometimes, and that makes them go quickly, And I'm like, really? That's just it's something that's outside of my my thing.
Right.
So, but because I'm a metaphysical person, I put energy into everything I do. So if I'm doing it as something, someone's wanting it because it's not it's not really a ritual item. It's just something that they're buying. But they just I put my pizzazz on it, and then it just it's it looks like a drag queen made it, so hey, so and it works. People love it. But like I said, the big ones are hysterical to me because they're just so big, but people just love them and carry them around and take them with them, and so clutching them to their breast, and I'm like, okay,
Do
it's
they
a little.
hang them from
It's
their rearview mirror? Do they put them in a
people
kit?
do.
What seems to be
People do.
really?
Yeah.
That is so
See, a lot of
interesting.
people put them on there, and they're kind of a good luck item apparently. And people put them on their mirrors in their cars or hang them up, and
Well, not
but
for the
they
chicken.
are. Well, not for, well, a lot of things not for the chicken.
Right.
But and the way I tell people, with voodoo, they sacrifice chickens a lot, but but you have, and people think that's terrible. But did you go buy Popeyes or KFC and eat a bucket of chicken? That chicken didn't get on that plate without someone killing it.
Well, certainly not voluntarily.
No. So, at least they're paying some kind of respect, or whatever, in their own beliefs. But and the chicken feed, I have known people hang up, but you have to think it's a dead animal thing. And they will slowly mummify more. I mean, they're mummified already; they're dried out, but they'll mummify more. So as they go along, they look more spooky and weird and. So like I said, it's not my kind of thing, but now, now that I make them and they're so popular, then it's, I have to make them now.
Right.
So,
Well,
it's a scream.
It is a scream. Lori in chat compared it, she's got rabbit's foot, ? It's like exactly.
And
It's
I
a
don't like
talisman.
rabbit's feet.
Yeah.
I don't like
that
rabbit's
either.
feet. I love little rabbits. I love little chickens. We have little chickens around us around here. One of our neighbors has this chicken that was in the road the other day, and I got out to get it out of the road, and it stood up, and it was just surrounded by chicks. I think they're adorable.
I do too.
And, I love chickens. I love little animals. I never did like when I was a kid when people would do rabbit's feet. I think it's, I just don't like that, it's not my thing. I'm surrounded with it a lot, but I don't like it. So, but that's, but it's not me who's getting it. But, here I am, the person that will go to Texas Roadhouse and have a steak.
Yes.
And then I feel bad because I ate the steak because, a cow had to be processed for that. And I'm probably, hopefully in my older age, I'm going to become a vegetarian. But I was raised so carnivorous that, because, they were feeding it. My dad was a Texan steak and potato thing, every day, meat and potatoes.
Yes.
And I was just raised from a baby chewing on meat. And, and it's now as I'm getting older, I'm more conscious of, of that. And so eventually I want to get away from it, but I'll feel bad about it. And then all of a sudden, I'm eating a piece of chicken. I'm eating a steak, and then I thought, well,
I feel like that too, though. Because it is. Yeah, I think as we get older, we become more aware, more conscious, and I also was raised meat and potatoes, and my mother, when we would entertain, my mother would cook all kinds of things. I did learn quickly that lobster is not the way to go because they yell. But and we spent the afternoon crying when she was fixing dinner for some guests that were coming, and that was on the menu. But
Yeah.
it was sad. But that broke me up from at least cooking those. But now, you mentioned that you're a metaphysical person. You are probably the most metaphysical person that I personally know, and one of the more knowledgeable, because
well, thank
you. When you went through your experiences, your death experiences, you came out of that, and you were literally trained. Were you not metaphysically trained?
I was, when I was 18, and I started getting into metaphysics, because I was raised as a little Baptist, but I knew I was something else, and when I was 18 until my mid-20s, maybe late 20s, was with a group that, because it was in the 70s and 80s, so to be in metaphysics, especially where I came from, you had to be in little secret groups. It was a secret, and you had to train, and they had groups that, from England, we have like the Masons and the Templars and all that stuff. But when the Masons came from Europe, they had a third degree kind of process. You had a step, a program. You became initiated, you learned, and then you became a person able to stand on their own feet. And so the metaphysics, when it came here to America in the 30s and 40s, the movements like Wicca and things like that, and Gardnerian and Alexandrian and all that, there wasn't a whole lot to you had to, if you wanted to study, you had to get in one of those kind of programs. Right. And I got into one and studied in that until the people started getting too weird. And because I really wanted to be, I was always a happy little person. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to help people. And I was fascinated with the metaphysical experience. And the person who swooped in and grabbed me like a hawk when I was about 18 into this saw my energy, saw what they wanted. They just, right. I wasn't there yet, but they saw ahead. And he wanted whatever I had to offer. And so I learned a discipline. I learned more when I was getting away from them because they were going in a direction I didn't want to go.
Right.
And so when I said no, that turned into an interesting thing, because these were people I thought I would be friends with until I was dead, until I was old. Well, until I was an old person. And it taught me a lot about people because, I found out I really had a lot to learn. But I learned more about having to fight off them than anything. And then when I was murdered, which I was murdered in a random act of violence, which they took credit for, actually, saying they did it, magically from behind, kind of thing. And but when I went through my death process and came back, I just felt like a channel. It's like the ebb and the flow, and yes. I was always hungry mentally and everything, but I always was told I was stupid, where I came from, because my family was very special. And they would just tell you, you're dumb, you're ugly, go away. And I found out that I had inner intelligence, and the experience I went through was actually the best for me because, I just began to know and to open and to learn. And there were things that I learned that I couldn't get out of a book. And I learned through osmosis. And actually, right now, I have a friend, Tia, who is a protege in the sense of she does readings and stuff. And so the universe brought her to me because when you get older, you, as an elder, kind of have to pass your knowledge to someone else. That's part of your process, that you pass your knowledge and work to someone else, or, what does it, to make it count for something. And so she does readings, and she does great readings. But when she's around me, she learns through osmosis. Her energy, she has the ability to channel and things like that in her. She didn't know she had that, but I started teaching her how to do certain things through readings and mediumship. So she's becoming a medium. And so before it's all over, and it's one of those things I learned from other people by being around them in their energy and their energy fields. And so when someone's around me that's wanting to learn something, I'll just say, well, come here, and I teach them through showing. And because you have to remember, you have to go inside and raise your own energy fields. And so that's what I do. So if people are learning through osmosis through me, and that's the best way I like to learn, which at this age, I never thought I would be teaching people stuff like that, because it's a big responsibility to teach anyone anything. And what they do with that, is the big deal. So I really have to know someone before I teach them anything. And so it's and for the store I work in, people are always asking me about what I do and how I do it. So I have this gigantic book. Actually, Teal gave me this wonderful leather book with stones all over it. And I'm making it for the store, which is to show different, how I do things. And I'm handwriting them and drawing artwork into it and making it a special book. And if they want to learn some of that old school way, then they can come to the store and write it down from that book and then go use it. And I tell people the old ways, what you would do is you would listen to your teacher. You would write down the books and all this, but you have to write it in your own hand. About everything's a recipe. Energy is a recipe. If you understand how to take energy recipes, take elements from other things and put them together, you get a result. So I'm trying to teach people the little things, but also to take it and then take what I have to say and then write it in your own words. Write your own poetry for it. Write your own ideas. Don't just let someone else's words be your words. Take and make your own words. Use their intelligence and their learning, but let it come out of you, in a way where you're putting your own energy out there. And the more that it's in your own words, the more that, like with prayer, the more you say something, the more response you're going to get, because you're connecting to your source. So it's very important to know your energy.
It's kind of like taking ownership of what you plan to do with it, right? So if they're by writing it, they're putting their energy into it and their intent.
Yes. Everything is intent. It's all about intent. But then they have to put their own intent into it. Don't just use my words. Listen to my words and go, okay, how do I do that in my own energy, my own signature? How do I do that? So I'm trying to teach them to think, because nowadays we're not taught to be individual. We're taught to be part of the Borg. Yes. And so I'm trying to teach people, be individual, be who you are. Find your own voice.
Think for yourself.
And then, when you join with other people, you can, but find your own voice first so that you can hear your own voice in a crowd. And then because you need to find your own grounding. And I try to teach people how to do their energy and how to access themselves and all of the information we have, because we have an incredible amount of stuff in us that we don't even realize is there. But we don't use half of what we've got. Yes, it's all innate. It's yes. Even the little street person that's hiding under the bridge, they all have a connection. We all have the same connection to the consciousness. So, we have it. And we have thousands of people's DNA in us, DNA memory. So we have all of that stuff in there, and we're not touching it. So, it's time to sit down and listen and find it. And that's what I try to do.
Well, I think that is beautiful. I think it's so important that people recognize that, because I think that as we go into this groupthink, and you referenced the Borg, I think that's very apt. But, especially of late, we find that we're so divided, and there's, limited mindsets accepted. And if you're in the wrong crowd and you're voicing the mindset that isn't accepted there, it doesn't matter what crowd. But if you're voicing an opposing mindset that doesn't fit the narrative being spoken, you're attacked. And sometimes badly, not just verbally. And, it's so important to value that difference instead of being lockstep, jackboot, follow the procession kind of a thing. We've seen what happens with that. It's not good.
It's not good.
And yet it's repeating. So, well, enough of that. I don't know how this soapbox got under my feet, but we have to take a break. So I'll step down and kick it to pieces and out the door, and we will go on. Y'all come back. We'll be right back to you.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. I'm Kat Hobson, your host, with my fantastic guest, Mark Fults. And Mark, I am so glad you're here. We have the most interesting discussions.
Yes, behind the scenes. We have great discussions. We talk about some weird stuff. So anything weird, I love it. I don't know why. I'm such a weirdo.
I was going to say, could it be because we're weird? I think so, maybe.
I am. Yes, I am weird, but and then there are some things, when it's too weird for me, then it's really something, So, because, there's quite a bit of little stuff that's just too weird. So, too weird for Walmart, So,
what's too weird for you? What is something that's just one thing? What's something that's too weird?
I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that's just too weird for me. There are things I watch online now. I'll have to go, oh, no, can't watch that. And it's not especially just, there are things that make me mad, really, like, seeing someone abusing someone else or animals or anything like that. Or just some of there are just so many strange people out there that do odd things that, there was a guy that came, well, I can't even tell this story. It's too weird. But, there are things I guess, being a reincarnated person sometimes, I feel like an old Southern gentleman. I think it's so gross the way people treat each other and say things. And there was a guy that came in yesterday, actually, or the day before, excuse me. I'm old. And was hitting on my friend who's a reader. And he was saying, he was 71 years old, but he was saying nasty things. And I looked at him. I wasn't involved in the reading, and she thought it was funny. She's used to handling people being lewd. She's very pretty. And I just said, you're just getting the reading and nothing else, mister, so knock it off, kind of thing.
Right.
And so later on, when she finished the reading, I was outside. She kept seeing me pass by the door, watching and making signs like, out of here, get him out of here. And he said, I know your partner's protecting you. And she said, yep. And I was like, because the things he was saying, I was like, I will snatch you out of that chair and whoop your sorry old Batutsky out in the parking lot. I'll spread you like old peanut butter on an old stale cracker, because it was just so tacky the way he was talking to this young girl. She's 38, but to me that's a child at this point. And she's like my daughter anyway, and I'm like, oh, whoop your sorry butt, get your viewing, like my mother would say to her sister, I'm going to whoop your butt. My mother would say, you better pack a picnic because it's going to be a long day.
There you go.
And so I'm like,
well, you're so Southern.
I thought, but it's so Southern. So that, that kind of stuff, anything that offends anyone abusing your child, you better get ready to run. If you're in my presence, because as I get older, I was raised in the day of, snatch them up and whoop them. And I'm talking about the people when they do things. And, but there's just some weird things. And I'll read metaphysical stuff sometimes that some of it's real icky or creepy or beyond my creepy, because I did a book called, The Darkest Corner. Well, someone had suggested I do that as a series because I did it about dolls, my haunted dolls, and people who treated bodies as dolls and things like that. It was a real weird story. So I was going to do the one about dolls and one about funeral homes and then one about serial killers. And I started doing the one about serial killers, and it just got so nasty that I finally said, I can't do it. I can't have this in my psyche. And we were real close to the end of the book. And she goes, we're just a few, like a chapter away from it. I said, I can't do it. I don't want to put that out there. And so she's going to do something with it. It was too much for me. And just, the Ted Bundys and the Jeffrey Dahmers and all those people, it just was too much. So it's where my limit kind of goes is, I like to see, what I like to do is help victims, help people who are looking for people or talk to their dead. I like to help the victims. I have a very strong thing about, since I've been a victim and I've known enough people who've been murdered or been victims. And so I'm not for these people that are the perpetrators. And so I'm very tough on that kind of stuff. And so those kind of things get under my skin in a way where I get very angry but there are certain things that just gross me out. So I just try not to be grossed out. And I like it, and I'll write all these ghost stories and these ghost books and all this stuff. And I'm really someone who likes flowers and butterflies and cats and, pretty things and sewing pretty things and making pretty things. And I'm like, and here I'm, doing this book on this, and I'm like, ew. And making chicken feet. It really did gross me out. The first time I handled one, it took me an hour to just do it, to handle it. And then I was like, ew. But they're dried. It's not they're not like raw chicken feet. They've been dried. They've been treated and everything. It was gross.
Well, I mean, I've seen them in the grocery store packaged to take home and do things with. So yours are already
and that's
dried.
where a lot of people get them. Yes, they're dried, they're prepared, and then I extra do them. I take them and put them in borax and which is like powder, but it dries them out. It makes sure there ain't no moisture. But they've already been treated and everything, the ones we got, but they have another smell in them because of the way they're treated. So I get them treated so they're just totally usable. But yeah, no. If they handed me raw ones, hell no.
I would just pass out or throw out.
I would pass on that. I'd say, you just find someone else who just dismissed her. But, but I get paid for them. So, that's the incentive. I'm just sitting there getting my check and doing what I got to do.
Sure.
So,
I mean, how many people working in an office every day are sitting there having to do things that they don't really like much either?
That they can't stand. And I'm like, all right, hand me the money, And, and I'm making something people like.
Want.
So,
Something people want.
And need. So that, yeah. So that's what I do. But it's
interesting. I'm sorry, but I was going to go to when you were talking about the serial killers, and I have friends who are just totally into learning and trying to understand the psyche and stuff, and I have to tell you that I have no interest in that. I think that I don't want to understand how someone can rationalize that to themselves. But also, I don't understand because I see or I feel when I'm reading something like that, I am experiencing from the victim side. And so I can't watch movies that are relevant to cruelty, men's inhumanity to men, whatever. I just don't do that because I am messed up for days afterward. If I make it through, if I even make it through, I've learned not to even try. But I mean, you're fairly tough, although you try to act like you're just an old Southern guy, but you're pretty tough. You have a very strong personality. You have very firm groundings and beliefs, and you've been through hell and come back, and you've come back stronger. I just think that if it bothers you, I feel much better about it bothering me, to be quite honest. But do you think that if you expose yourself to that too much, that you become desensitized and you can almost be at a risk for becoming that, or at least being more open to it?
I don't think people become that because they read it, because I think that all of these people, that was in them. It is so primitive, and it could be that they haven't been reincarnated enough and they're just primitive. They're like predators, like we have owls and hawks. They're just predators in nature. And
but they're not doing it
when I
for food. I mean, they're doing it.
No, they're doing it to play.
Yeah.
Yes. For
pleasure.
Bundy, Bundy killed girls, and then he would do their makeup and hair.
Yeah. I mean,
and keep going back to them for days. And only stopping when he had to. And Dahmer, there's an element to his that he was so lonely for people. The only way he could be close to someone was to eat them. You're going to be a part of me forever. But the thing that really gets me in these, there are so many times people knew something was going on and couldn't stop it, or didn't stop it, or tried to stop it and couldn't. And it just... sometimes I think, evil is protected just as well as good. And sometimes we learn from the evil, because evil makes us show our real colors. Who are we? Are you going to stand up against it, or are you going to let it happen? Right. Not saying no, it's saying yes sometimes.
Exactly.
But it's like nature. It's something that's happening, but how you react to it, or how you stop it, or how you, even if you can't stop it, at least saying, well, I did my best to stop that, is you have to try. I've been put through stuff in Chattanooga. It's very disheartening what people can get away with. People will go, well, they have to do something that we can catch them at. And then, and there you are knowing what they're doing. So it's very disheartening. But with me, I get with like those kind of things, like the Dahmers and stuff like that, I'm very empathetic. And so, like I said, I've known people who've been murdered. And so it gets into me in a way where I don't like it to make me as angry as it makes me, or as upset, because it's like, because I look at those poor people, or I hear stories of people doing things to children, and the first thing I want to do is go, I want to save that child. And then you go, well, it's already too late, dummy. It's already happened. That child's dead. You can't do anything about it. And that kind of thing gets me. And then there they are on TV, just grinning and smiling, or thinking they're smart because they got away with what they did. So that to me, that kind of stuff is too. I'd rather talk about ghosts and chase ghosts than murderers any day.
Me too. And I don't mind finding them. So
no.
I shudder to think what my reactions would be were I had to find the other. We are going to, believe it or not, have to take our top of the hour break. I can't believe we're already here. But this is a good time to stretch those legs, stand up. This is the little news, and hopefully there's a little good news here. I'm ever hopeful. We will be back after this. More with Mark Elliott Fults. Thanks for listening. See you on the flip side.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Janine Herbst. Another weekend of deadly shootings in the U.S. Authorities in Alabama say at least 4 people are dead, 28 others injured in a shooting at a Sweet 16 birthday party last night in the small town of Dadeville, Alabama. Alabama Law Enforcement Agency Sergeant Jerry Hett says some of the injured are in critical condition.
We're going through in a very methodical way. We're not going to rush. We're not going to rush to failure. We're going to do exactly what we need to do to ensure justice is brought to bear for those families. And I also want to just share and reiterate We've got to have information from the community.
But police are releasing very little information about the attack, and there's still no word on a motive. Meanwhile, in Louisville, Kentucky, residents are reeling after another mass shooting in the city, this time in a local park. At least 2 people are dead, 4 others injured. Morgan Watkins of Louisville Public Media reports this as residents mourn last Monday's deadly bank shooting that left 5 dead and more injured.
Louisvillians lined up on Saturday to donate blood in honor of the victims who were shot at the bank. Hours later, someone opened fire on a big crowd at the city's Chickasaw Park in another deadly attack. Mayor Craig Greenberg, heard here on WHAS-TV, called it an unspeakable week of tragedy and implored collective action to prevent gun violence.
We must continue to tell our friends, our family, our law enforcement when people are struggling, when we think people have guns that shouldn't have guns.
The Republican-run Kentucky legislature weakened state restrictions on guns in recent years. Louisville's mayor and other Democratic public officials are urging them to change course. For NPR News, I'm Morgan Watkins in Louisville.
At least 56 people are dead, hundreds more injured over 2 days of fighting that erupted yesterday across Sudan's capital, Khartoum, and other cities. The fighting between Sudan's army and a powerful paramilitary group continued, even though a temporary humanitarian ceasefire. As NPR's Emmanuel Akinwotu reports, neither side is backing down.
Sudanese cities and towns have turned into battlefields. On social media, shocked and helpless citizens post images of their homes razed with artillery and bullet holes. Soldiers attacked from balconies and rooftops of apartment buildings. That has been the unfolding scene in Khartoum and other parts of Sudan this weekend. The bloody power struggle between the Rapid Support Forces and Sudan's army has left many civilians trapped at home without enough food, water, and suffering power outages. At least 3 humanitarian workers are among the dead. Children are reported stranded in schools, patients without treatment in hospitals. Emmanuel Akinwotu, NPR News, Lagos.
U.S. futures contracts are trading slightly higher at last check. This is NPR. Tomorrow, close to 30,000 runners will hit the streets of Boston for the 127th Boston Marathon. This year's running takes place days after the 10th anniversary of the attack on the race that killed 3 people and injured more than 260. From member station WBUR, Amanda Beeland has more.
Yuki Chorny is running her 20th Boston Marathon this year. One of those runs was in 2013. Chorny says she finished the race with her best time yet and went back to her hotel room to shower. That's when she heard about the explosions. She says she'll always remember that day and the victims. But this year, she's holding something else in her heart, too.
My goal on Monday is to kind of spread a little bit of happiness to everybody and make sure that, the city of Boston feels that. And I think all the runners are out there to do that as well.
The first wave of runners are scheduled to start the race from the start line in Hopkinton, Massachusetts at 10 a.m. For NPR News, I'm Amanda Beeland in Boston.
The longest-running show on Broadway lowers the curtain tonight for the final time. Andrew Lloyd Webber's The Phantom of the Opera has run for more than 35 years. That's nearly 14,000 performances. The show has played to audiences of more than 20 million on Broadway, grossing more than $1.3 billion. 6,500 people, including 400 actors, have been employed by Phantom, but after the pandemic restrictions were lifted and Broadway reopened, the play was losing money, and the decision was made to close it. I'm Janine Herbst, and you're listening to NPR News from Washington.
You are the public in public media. Your support, whether you donate to your local station or sign up for a program like NPR Plus, makes it possible for us to uphold the values of journalism no matter what. If you haven't already, check out the NPR Plus version of podcasts like this one and get more from the shows you love. Learn more at plus.npr.org.